The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. Yeah!
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. Just a term being used by the media, and I think it's appropriate for the swimming pool industry also. They're using the term not enough economy, which is basically trying to explain that there's a shortage of just about any product out there. And in the pool industry, we're getting hit particularly hard with chemicals and equipment, and also a shortage of employees. I'm going to go over some things in this podcast that may help you navigate the not enough economy in the pool industry. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Also receive priority service, enhanced rebate programs, a discount on your general liability insurance through SPA, a discount on your pool routing software through Skimmer, and an opportunity to co-brand with Leslie's on your social media, website, truck, and more. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro. And if it makes you feel any better, and I guess misery likes company, we're not the only industry with a shortage. I was getting some paint the other day at Sherwin-Williams, and there was a painter in there searching frantically for a base that they didn't have anywhere. So paint, of course, is in short supply. You probably heard that in the media. And there's also a shortage of new and used cars out there. I hear commercials on the radio all the time to turn in your car, because there's a lot of value and people are looking for a used car. Now that doesn't help us one bit in the pool industry because we're suffering from a similar kind of shortage. Right now I'm trying to locate a 400 BTU heater for a customer, and I'm checking all brands, and there's just nothing in my immediate area. And to make things worse, if there is a heater, my Hayward guy found a heater in San Diego, but there are no drivers that will drive it up here to my area of Southern California. And so I'm kind of out of luck unless I want to drive down to San Diego or drive out of state to find one. I can't get one immediately, so I'm not sure when the heaters are going to be available, but that's one of the things you're running into. And I don't think you would want to, I guess I should touch on this real quick since I'm talking about the heater I'm looking for. One thing you don't want to do is to go down to a smaller heater or a lower BTU. So if you go to a 266 BTU heater or even lower, basically it's going to take twice as long to heat up your pool. So if you currently have a 400,000 BTU heater or 400 BTU heater on your pool, which is their abbreviation for it, and you go to a 266,000 BTU heater, just figure it'll take about twice as long to heat your spa or to heat your pool. So if you have a 15,000 gallon pool and you're at 74 degrees, let's say, and it takes you 6 hours to heat it to 82 with a 400 BTU heater, figure it's going to take you about 12 hours with a smaller heater. So it's not an option to go down from, the size of the heater because you can find one with a lower BTU. That's not something that you would want to do. Nor would you want to switch out a gas heater for a heat pump. They don't work the same way, and I don't think it's a good idea. Besides that, you may not have the setup at your equipment may not be able to handle the amps from a heat pump because basically that's electric, and if you're running gas, typically you don't have enough room or enough voltage to run that on your equipment. So you can't really switch out things that easily. So if you can't find a 400 BTU heater, you're going to have to just keep looking for it like I'm doing right now. And the customer already basically has bought this heater. I just can't find it. And to make matters probably a little bit worse, July 19th, which is today, they're going to put in effect the variable speed pump regulations across the nation, which means that manufacturers can no longer sell certain pool pumps or certain replacement pumps, I should say. Now, there may be an inventory in your area. I really doubt if you're going to have an inventory in your area at this point because there's really nothing out there. So basically what's going to happen going forward after today is that you can't install certain types of energy using or high energy using motors. So anything over about 1 horsepower is going to be pretty much not allowed in the industry anymore. So you have to switch over to variable speed pump. And I've also noticed that the VS pump prices have been creeping up in the last 2 months. I don't know if that's just inflation or the fact that more people are going to have to use them, and so the manufacturers have kind of, knocked the price up somewhat. on those, but they are more expensive this season than they were last season. And you notice that if you buy a VS pump wholesale at your supplier, that the price has jumped significantly. Before this season, you can probably get a good VS pump for under $1,000, a 3 horsepower pump. Those days are gone. You're not going to be able to find one unless you get an off-brand pump. Now, I should say, if you're going to look for an off-brand pump, there are a lot of good ones out there on the market. They're not something that you should overlook because it's quote-unquote not made by Pentair, Fluidra, Jandy, Hayward. But these off-brand pumps are definitely a great way to save some money if you can't find the name brand pump, and you may have trouble finding a Pentair or Hayward pump at this point at a good price. So going with something like the Jacuzzi VS pump, which by the way is made by Hayward, so you're actually getting a Hayward pump when you buy the Jacuzzi pump, VS pump. So you're not trading anything, you're not trading quality by going with the Jacuzzi pump. And then if you go for something like the Circa Pool VS pump, or some other branded pumps, most of those will have a Century motor on the back. And Century makes the VS motors for Jandy and Hayward. The only thing about off-brand VS pumps, besides the Jacuzzi, which are made by Hayward, is the drive itself. And so you have to make sure that the reviews and ratings are pretty good on the pump as far as longevity, because the drive is basically the whole VS pump. And when that doesn't work, you have to get a whole new pump usually, or a whole new back end of it, because the drive is really expensive. I think if you are looking online for a drive for maybe a Pentair Teleflow pump, it's like $700. So this is the main component of the VS pump. So if you're buying an off-brand VS pump, make sure that the drive is very reliable. Another thing that we're short of in the industry is chlorine, or chemicals in general. There's a shortage of muriatic acid right now, along with chlorine. So what happened, I think, is that since the Tri-Chlor shortage, if you are not tracking this, if you're living in a cave, the Biolab factory burned down last year with the hurricane in Louisiana, and Biolab made like 2 million pounds of Tri-Chlor every year. So that's off the market, and Tri-Chlor tablets are kind of like the magic pills out there because they slowly dissolve in the pool and maintain the chlorine level. So without those, people went to other chlorine types, Cal Hypo, liquid chlorine, even dichlor, which I don't recommend as a sanitizer, main sanitizer, because of the high cyanuric acid. But the Cal Hypo and liquid chlorine have been kind of the go-to, and so those are in short supply. And like anything else, when something's running low, the other things on the shelf will people will gravitate towards, and then that's going to run low. Kind of like what happened, with the toilet paper crisis back in COVID. When the store was out of Charmin, you just went with Angel Soft, or you eventually got to like the name brand. I remember my neighbor bought like industrial toilet paper from a friend, the kind that you find like in outhouses that are like 0 ply, I guess less than 1 ply. He bought like rolls of this with no way to dispense it. So you kind of get the idea when things start to run low that people will gravitate towards other products in that category. And that happened with the chlorine. And so liquid chlorine and Cal Hypo are in short supply in a lot of areas. And then of course the price increase, because when there's a higher demand for something, the price is going to go up just because, there's a lot of factors in that. But I think mainly because people are wanting it. And so now is the time to raise the price because everyone wants something. And we saw that with toilet paper, of course. There was like a roll of Charmin on eBay for like $20. So the same thing's happening here. I think it's not like quite as outrageous with the price gouging, but if you're buying chemicals online or, somewhere like that, you can see that the prices have kind of doubled or even tripled online, which is probably not the place you would want to buy your chemicals anyway. But if you go to a wholesaler or if you're shopping at Leslie's, you'll find that the prices definitely have gone up. And that's just because the supply chain has been affected by the Tri-Chlor shortage, which causes an increase in prices. But the overall inflation rate is actually close to 6% anyway. And if you've gotten gas anytime recently, I just got gas yesterday and I thought it was a bargain at $4.05 for regular. And, I'm dating myself here, but I remember when gas was 97 cents, 96 cents, 94 cents a gallon. And when it broke the dollar mark, there was like people protesting in the streets. But $4.05 is a bargain right now in my area. And it's pretty crazy if you think about how much everything is costing. And if I'm paying $4.05 for fuel, the trucks that deliver chemicals are paying more for diesel. and it just kind of gets passed on to the consumer. Besides there being a shortage, there's definitely an increase in the overall operation of a company and recruiting employees. I think this is going to be one of the things that's going to affect the industry in a bad way going forward, because everyone is demanding higher and higher wages because there's less people working, and there's people that just don't want to work, I guess, in one respect. But there's signs everywhere. I mean, I was just at the furniture store and they're paying $16 an hour for the warehouse, plus you get $1,000 signing bonus, which is pretty unheard of for warehouse work, but $16 an hour is pretty good. If you're getting a job at a local fast food restaurant here, $15 an hour is pretty standard. When I first got my first job, I was making $3.75 an hour. My first paycheck was $150, and I thought I was really rich. What is that, 10 hours of working nowadays at $15 an hour? So things have definitely changed, and the value of the dollar has definitely kind of gone down in a way. The amount of money it costs to buy something now versus 5 years ago or even last year is more. So it's not really that things cost more, it's just that the inflation has gone up, making it look like it's costing more. But in reality, it's just the way things are trending right now with the inflation. So you're going to see that in the industry. So it's one of those things where you can't argue with the price because you need the chemicals, you need the equipment. And what are you going to do? Complain about the price when you actually need it? You're just going to have to pass on the cost to the consumer, which is what the manufacturer is doing. And so if you're doing a pool service route and you're paying more money for chlorine, you're going to have to raise your rates so the customer will help you out with that. You can't absorb that because you're going to go out of business basically. And the same thing with restaurants that are paying their employees $15 an hour. You can't expect them to, have the burger special at $6 or $7 anymore because they're paying their employees more. I just heard today that the 99-cent store is really suffering because it's really hard for them to buy products and then sell it for $1 or 99 cents. So they're looking at expanding the 99-cent store to have $3 and $5 items, kind of like Five Below. And so the economy is definitely changing. Maybe they're going to change their name to the $1.99 store. I don't know. But things are not the way they used to be, and it's really affecting the industry. So back to the employee shortage, I think if you're looking for an employee for your pool route, you're going to have a tough time finding someone qualified that wants to work out there. It's not an easy job for somebody who's not the owner of the route because of the heat out there, and also some of the chemistry issues we're having with running out of chlorine and algae in the pools. So it's not something that you're advertising for, and it's going to be people lining up to go out there and do pool service. And you're also competing against, Target starting out their employees at $15 an hour, fast food restaurants starting out at $15, warehouses starting out at $16, maybe even $20. I think Uline is hiring and they're paying over $20 an hour. And these are other competitors for for a small amount of people in the job market to begin with. And if you're not getting anyone applying for your pool service job, it's mainly because there's other jobs offering them pretty good money, pretty good hourly wages, and sometimes benefits and signing bonuses. So I think you have to up the ante, and there's certain ways to lure someone to become an employee. You can, of course, offer them some benefits. You can offer them, one guy was even offering his employee a partnership in the business. So if he worked long enough, he would get a percentage of the business and he would get some accounts. You can do that. I mean, I don't know how that would work long term, but basically you have to see an employee as someone transitioning to having their own business. And I think you're a stepping stone for them if they're working for you for 1 or 2 years, and you should be happy with the service you're getting from them out of that time. Now, there are some benefits for working for somebody because you don't have to worry about the billing or customer complaints or things of that nature. So you might find someone who would just want to do that, who doesn't want all the headaches of running their own business. But I think most people that are working out there for somebody eventually will want to have their own pool route. And unlike other industries where, you hire someone to flip burgers, they're not going to have their own burger restaurant in a year or two. So it's kind of a different industry, a different job pool, and a different way of looking at things. So I don't think you can hire someone and have them sign a non-compete and say, hey, you're going to work for me and you can't get any accounts. Those days are probably over. And besides that, the non-competes are not enforceable in California. I don't think they're enforceable in a lot of states. And there's a lot of reasons behind that. But just briefly, for a non-compete to be enforceable, you have to give that person some kind of monetary compensation or value to sign that non-compete. And usually when you have your employee sign that, you don't give them $20,000 to sign a non-compete. So there's no value to it, and the courts will just throw that out. And to add on to the misery of getting an employee in the industry, the 1099, the ability to make your employee a 1099 subcontractor is pretty much done in California, and it's heading that way across the nation with the PRO Act that's been passed. I think sometime last year they passed it. And so you're going to find less ability to have a 1099 employee as a pool service provider with your company. And the basic requirements is that if they're doing the same work that you're doing, then they can't be a 1099 employee. So a lot of the hairdressers here in California, they can't rent chairs out and pay them as 1099 employees anymore. My local school of music can't pay their instructors as 1099 employees. And so everyone is becoming an employee. And in California, having an employee is extremely expensive. Not only do you pay double taxes on them when you have an employee, but the tax rate is really high here. And an employee is going to cost you a lot more money than a 1099 subcontractor would cost. So that's another wrinkle there. But the whole overall, getting someone in the industry that's going to work for you long term without starting their business is probably the biggest hurdle. Again, it's pretty easy for them to get the skills and then start their own pool route. And you have to look at your employee as someone transitional, unless you get someone older who's like semi-retired and you hire them. But I think one of the things that's going to happen in the industry, since there's so much work out there, in my area, there's so many pools that need service and people are looking for pool service, that's going to be hard for you to retain that employee and stop them from starting their own business because accounts are readily available out there. So this not enough economy is definitely affecting every sector of the pool industry. Builders are like 9 or 10 months behind in my area, mainly because they have so much work and it takes a lot to do a pool. If you ever had a pool built or seen a pool being built, there's permit processes. The city's not helping by being really slow in that aspect. Then there's the equipment shortage. I mean, if you're building a pool, you're going to need all this equipment, and I can't even find a heater. And so there's that aspect of it. And there's the fact that so many people want a pool built, and it's having a major effect on the cost of having a pool built. I think the cost of a pool has gone up dramatically for that reason. So what are some of the solutions for the not enough economy? I think shopping for brands, if you're looking at equipment, is one thing you can do. Pentair, Hayward, and Floridra Jandy, they're all on a pretty level playing field when it comes to their equipment. You may have a preference for Pentair, but that preference has to kind of go to the wayside. And if you're upgrading maybe a VS pump for an automated system, note that you can connect a Pentair IntelliFlow to a Jandy automated system, and vice versa. You can connect a Jandy VS pump to a Pentair system. It's not that difficult to do. They're all pretty well made, and so if you can't find the IntelliFlow pump, go with the Jandy Flow Pro. There's VS. There's definitely comparabilities between the pumps, and I think looking for a specific brand or color pump or equipment is something that you can't really do in this market. And I'm not sure how long this is going to go for. I've heard different reports, but I think 2022 is going to be a season where there's going to be problems also. And I think in the off season, people are going to be searching for stuff and kind of stockpiling things because they don't want to go through the same thing that happened this season with the equipment shortage and with things like that. And I forgot to mention the big freeze in Texas is a major factor too. You lost a lot of equipment, a lot of plumbing, a lot of valves were lost there. And ironically, nobody really makes off-brand three-way valves. And so you're kind of stuck looking for a Hayward, Pentair, or Jandy valve. And a lot of people had trouble finding them. I think they're still in pretty short supply. And also the part shortages for equipment. There's one reason why I'm getting a new heater for this customer is that you can't find the parts to repair the heater. And the same goes for maybe a booster pump, Polaris pump. You can't find a seal plate. You can't find an important component for that particular item. And at that point, you're going to have to go with a new booster pump or a new heater, like in the case with the customer that I'm dealing with, because there's no parts to repair it, basically. It's an older heater. It's a NT, and there's just nothing out there as far as parts go to get it running again. Besides that, it's about 12, 14 years old. So they definitely need to upgrade. And I think one thing you can do for your customers is that if you have a piece of equipment that normally we would repair or, just put a new motor on, now is the time to explain to them that there's really no parts out there. They're not keeping up with the part demand, and replacing it with something new is probably one of the only options at this point. And you can explain it on the fact that there's a shortage of parts out there, which is a truism. There's a shortage of parts for everything from cars and you name it. I had, my mechanic trying to find a part for me for my Nissan truck, and he couldn't find it because they just don't have it. So maybe at Pick Apart or something, they would have that. But basically, there's just nothing out there. And the not enough economy is really affecting every aspect of the industry, from finding chlorine, from finding pool equipment, from finding the branded pool equipment that you like. And I know it's really nice to have all Pentair equipment on the pad or all Jandy equipment on the pad, but in some cases you can't do that. You can look at off-brand filters like Waterway. I wouldn't consider that a real off-brand. They really make good equipment. So the Waterway or Jacuzzi filters would be a good replacement for a Hayward or a Pentair filter. And definitely you can go from DE to cartridge, or from cartridge to DE, which I don't recommend, but you can definitely go from DE to cartridge. I have a preference there. And so if you can't find a DE filter, definitely go with a cartridge filter. And in your area, if you have sand filters, you can go with a cartridge filter there. And I think, cartridge is the way to go if you're upgrading a filter anyway. Or the quad type DE filters is something that I also like. So kind of keep an open mind when you're replacing equipment also. If someone has a DE filter and they want a DE filter and you can't find one, you really have no choice but to go with a cartridge filter or even a sand filter in some cases, because you just can't find the equipment that the customer needs. And this is a very frustrating problem on all levels. And I think, one thing that you have to keep in mind is that it's nothing that you can control. You can't control the fact that there's no chlorine being shipped to your local supplier, nor can you control the fact that you're being rationed sometimes to have, maybe 3 cases of liquid chlorine or 1 tablet per day. And these are all things out of your control. And it is very frustrating, and I feel it with you. I can't find equipment that I need. And definitely there's a chemical shortage in my area. Luckily, it's not as severe as other areas. There's still chlorine available. But one of these things that you're going to have to deal with in the industry is the shortage of employees, the shortage of qualified drivers for the companies, and of course the shortage of equipment and chemicals. And hopefully by next season things will turn around. But like I said, I think in the off season, people are going to just buy up things because they can't find them during the season. And it's going to be one of those things where in the off season this year, I think there's going to be a lot of sales of products getting ready for the 2022 season. And I have recorded a lot of podcasts on the chlorine shortage. And if you're looking for ways to get around not having chlorine or one type of chlorine, go to my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. On the banner, on the podcast icon, click on that, and then you'll see a drop-down list of the previous podcasts I recorded. And you can find a few of those on, substituting one chlorine type for another, or certain cautions about substituting one chlorine type for another, and so forth, and how the chlorine types compare to each other. All those can be found on my podcast site. And if you want to enhance your business, definitely check out my coaching program at poolguycoaching.com. A lot of great benefits for joining there, including a discount on your general liability insurance. Again, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. Pool Service Pro. Open a Leslie's wholesale account today and receive wholesale pricing on products you use every day. Leslie's Pool Supply offers convenient locations that are open 7 days a week. Another great benefit of opening a Leslie's wholesale account is Leslie's referral program. Get referred to a customer looking for weekly pool service. Save time and money and grow your pool service route and become a Leslie's Pro.